get this going. So when you take a look at this image, you're trying to analyze it as best you can, and the pen tool might be the best to create this musical staff as you come through this section. So just clicking the pen tool, taking a look at your panels, you can see you have all the different tools that are listed in here as well, and selecting them so it has a separate connection to it, but just the letter P will give you all these different tools when you take a look at them. Okay, so here's the pen tool. Let's see. Okay, so taking a look at this, I'm just going to, it's right now the fill and the stroke, that's the solid color, and the inside color. Again, the fill is the inside, the stroke is the outside, so just creating that rectangle to show that to you. Whichever one is selected, I'm just going to take the fill off, so I just have the stroke. And the cap locks makes the pen tool illustrate there. So I'm just going to click and drag this handle out to make this curve. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. And come down here and just come to this midpoint of the curve, the arch of the curve, and bend that. And then come up to here to make that shape. This is still highlighted, but if I hold the Command key and click, it'll deselect everything. And with the tool, there's a, when you leave the mouse over it, it tells you it's the selection tool or the direct selection tool. And when I click the direct selection tool, the handles come out. I can adjust them to match up as best as I can for that piece. And again, I'm trying to interpret each of your drawings. So on this one, I'm just going to copy this. I'm assuming that you can make them all different. I'm just going to show you how to make them all the same. The option will turn the arrowhead into a double-headed arrow, and the shift key keeps it moving straight up and down. So I can make that there. Now I know it's not matching that, but I'm just going to do it two ways. And then before I touch anything, if I hit the Command and the letter D, it'll duplicate these images straight up like that. So now I have all these curved pieces, and I'm just going to take the pen tool and click on the end point of the two end ones here, and that'll make this entire shape. So now I draw a selection box around all of it so I can move it around, but I'm going to go ahead and group it together under Object, and then I can stretch this out at the top and keep that going across. So that's if you want it to be all equal distances, and the stroke panel is going to give you a little bit of thickness to it. Or you can also use the profile to change some of it to give it a little bit of a look to it. But that's just a couple things to take a look at. Okay? And then looking at the rest of the pieces, the pen tool again, I'm just going to take a look at this section for the N and go all the way to the top here. So there's the piece there. I'm going to come down below this and just click and drag this part up to here. Here I'm going to deselect it and come over here and do the L. A little bit of a curve. Remember to click on the end to set it as what they call a corner point and drag this part up. Okay. Now, if I like the thickness of this line, for example, that's pretty good. I can always go into the stroke and just reduce it down to 1, and then use this width tool. And again, if you remember, that lets me drag this out to make that thick. I'm just going to hold the Option key down, and that just does it to one side. And that way you can see depending on which side you're dragging it from, it'll make that shape. So again, here's the N, and just making it 1 point, taking the width tool and coming down to this anchor point. You can see, I'll do it pretty wide so at least you can see what's happening. And Edit Undo is the Command Z, and so now I'm just going to drag this, hold the Option key and just do one side of it. So you just have to kind of get used to where your points are and how you're selecting some of the imagery there. So it'll get you onto that piece. So that's a little bit larger than that. Here's the end point up here. That'll be in there. And again, with this direct selection tool, I'll just zoom in so you can see it. And like I said, I know you're just getting started with this, but the pen tool has some options to it that you can select on as well. There's the window shade, and just make sure you have the pen tool when you go through that. Coming in here, so I have this anchor point highlighted and can adjust that piece. Same thing here, you can adjust the curve of these end pieces. This is the end cap. And that'll give you some other options to experiment with. So you can move this up and adjust it a little bit. So just kind of back up. And then taking the ellipse tool under the rectangle tool, here's the window shade. Making these elliptical shapes. And once they're selected, just going outside of the area and then using the arrow keys to bump this up a little bit. And then just switching this over. And you can option and drag that to make that space a little bigger. Here's the space bar with the hand held down. And here again is this. So before letting go, I can use the space bar to move it around, just like your screenshot, and fill that piece up there. Here, this part with the pen, I can just click and create that shape. And then coming over to this cleft, I'm just going to kind of click in the middle with the pen tool. You can see I have the strokes. I'm going to switch that around. And you can see the rubber banding of this hand is what they call it. So I'm just going to click and drag, trying to put the curve right in the middle. And then just climbing up this whole piece right here. Let's see if this will work. All the way down to this end piece. And then with this is selected, I'm just going to go back into the width tool and just extend that part right there. It gives me a little bit of this section, and then this action point here I can option to increase that piece. Maybe it's a little too much. And that's one way to put it together. The alternative to this would be to just use the pen along the outer edge and create it that way. So it's kind of building this up all the way across. So that would be a possibility. I'll just do a little bit of it just to show it to you. That's a way to build it up as well. So depending on as you interpret the illustration is to see how it looks with the freeform, because the drawing is very artistically placed in there and you want to kind of keep the feel for that, and that'll give you that selection. So again, here's the, zoom this in a little bit. Kind of did this in two pieces, but that's okay. Top. And just come down. So, and you can always go back and modify these pieces as well. Okay. So just Command minus, just trying to take a look at it. I'm going to click off the background. If I had the grid, it's under Show Grid. That's going to show up on the top. Before I take the picture, I'll take that off. Okay. Take that out. Hit the Tab key again. Command R to get rid of the rulers, the letter F to get a blank screen, and then Command Shift 4 turns this into a crosshair. Without releasing the mouse, I can draw a box. The spacebar allows me to recompose this, and I can take the picture from there. And then the picture is in the Finder, and when you take a look at it, here's the desktop, and here's the shot. So you have that image, and then just click on here to title it for when you submit that piece.